Hiya, Ken. Oh my God! What's that? What's that from?
That is from... which one was that from?
It was from Fire.
That was from the Mad Maya fire, wasn't it?
Mad Maya Fire, yeah.
Yes.
Might have been.
We're talking about fires
I've watched them all
today.
I've watched every single fire.
No, don't say that, because this isn't... We're going to be talking about Corrie fires today because, there's... Don't know whether you noticed, but there's been one on the street this week. And I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at Corrie's history with all things infernal. Is that
I don't think infernal is the right word.
Blazing.
Inferno is right.
Well, this is not an exhaustive list of Coronation Street fires, although it was quite exhausting finding out about all of them and watching, didn't it? Because there's been more than you think. Just for a street, for a normal Manchester street.
I've watched 2 days worth of fires, hours and hours and hours of fires.
So we are fire experts,
and I can tell you that the main things you need for a Coronation Street fire is like beep 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 beep.
There was a lot of beep 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 beep. There's a lot of
smoke
ring
alarms.
999.
Yeah. Is insert character name in there? Oh, I don't know.
Awful lot of
coughing. I haven't seen them.
Awful lot of coughing.
Yeah. People refusing to get into ambulances because then they're fine. And what else? Lots of people. Oh, Becky being pulled out, like carried. Out of places.
Yeah, Becky had a bit of a rum do, didn't she, when it came to fire? There was a few characters that we noticed that seemed somewhat...
cropping up. Leanne's always around when there's a fire. I know
mm-hmm.
she's a suspect for this one, but I'm starting to think maybe back to previous fires and wondering whether she's been behind every single one.
Maybe it could be, yeah. So it has been quite fun. I mean, they get a bit samey at points, but there's been a variety of fires that we're going to be chatting about today. Do go and check them out. These are all available on YouTube. If you just, in the mood, it's still just February, isn't it? It's still chilly. So maybe...
I don't think you can catch anything on fire in the winter.
You know how, at Christmas, especially like Netflix will put on fire surrounds that you can put on your TV to make your room look festive and toasty. You could just put... There should just be a playlist of Corrie fires that you could...
Just the Rovers on fire, just festively twinkling when everyone opens their presents on Christmas Day.
Yeah, maybe. So fires on Coronation Street then. I've been looking into these. We're going to just... Maybe talk about the big ones first and kind of work our way downwards.
I don't know. I think we should... No.
No?
Why do you start with the most exciting and then at the end we'll be like...
We don't have to.
Hope set fire.
We've been watching them all. We can jump all over them. But yeah, we'll talk about, who was involved, how they started. My one fire fact that I know about Coronation Street, and I don't know whether they still do this these days, because... I think the redecorating budget would be astronomical, but every time that there is a fire in Coronation Street, they always used to put an orange item of furniture or a little trinket or a knick-knack in there as a way of showing a fire's been here, which I think is pretty cool. But I think that, every house would probably have something. It might be worth kind of thinking what hasn't set on fire yet, because there's not much, is there?
Well, no, I'm trying to think. I think...
Medical centre. We hadn't had a good medical centre file. Just the
Weatherfield
Hospital.
I wanted to set fire to the
Yeah.
I wanted to set fire to the hospital, didn't I?
Yeah, I think there's still a few of the terraced houses that haven't caught alight so much.
The Rovers has caught fire a couple of times.
I wonder whether with the terraced houses not going on fire, it's more to do with the fact that if it spreads, which they're more likely to spread there, it'd be a lot more catastrophic, and maybe they don't want to ruin too many people's homes.
All of the attics were open.
Yeah, they were all connected at once.
I don't know if they
bricked
bricked them up.
Attic fire.
But that would be really amazing, actually, if they had a scene where they were crawling around in the attic and everyone had to escape through Curly's hole.
Curly's out of the way telescope. Yeah, no, most things have been on fire, so we'll be covering the whole of the street really today. Something that I also kind of wanted to have as a bit of a preamble to this as well is every year at work we have to have fire training every September. And one of the things that the guy says he comes in is like, it's not like on TV in real life. He's not really northern. I don't know why I give him that voice. And he's like, he every so often during his talk, he's like, and on TV you'll see them do this. You can't do that for real. Things like running through the flames. You can't really do that, or at least running through the flames and coming out fairly unscathed. Just take a good run up, bursting through. You're fine on Coronation Street, and I've certainly seen a bit of that in the clips that I've watched in the last few days.
I know, but it's so funny because I know that you can't, but I also don't believe it.
It's not like putting your finger through the top of a candle really fast.
You do think that I could run through a fire. You know what I mean? This is the dangerous.
No,
this is
apparently
intrusive thoughts. Human beings and our intrusive thoughts. Like it.
TV made me do it. Well, the thing that you really, really shouldn't do if you're going to run through a fire is to wet your clothes. As in, like, put a bit of wet towel or whatever. Go in the shower and then think the water will. The steam will not do you so well if you're doing that. And there's
lots of things you shouldn't do in a fire.
Yeah,
you should mostly just. Your main priority is to not be in the fire.
Yeah, for sure. There's also a lot of carrying people, just sometimes through flames without protection. Just honestly, a lot of going in and rescuing people. Full stop is not particularly recommended in real life, but unless you're a fireman
or lady,
yes,
like Tony.
There's it does seem that in the street and another TV, people will be waiting outside, and for whatever reason, the fire engine is taking a little while to get here, so they all decide to be brave and go in. Not recommended, however heroic you think it's going to make you look. But I'm not going to tell you what to do for your. Not going to tell you what to do for your family.
We recommend.
I'm just saying, Gemma. I wouldn't come and give you a fireman's lift out of the house.
You couldn't carry me.
No, I'd say, come on, fire engine, come on, you can do it.
You wouldn't rescue me, would you? I'd rescue you.
Would you? Thanks.
Of course I would.
Thanks. Apparently,
you earn all the money.
Apparently, what doesn't particularly happen so much in real life as well is the waking up and coughing with your room full of smoke in the middle of the night. It's more likely that you just die in the middle of the night, but that's not dramatic as well. So characters waking up having a bit of a splutter and then making their way out isn't as realistic as you might think.
How often do things explode in your everyday general domestic settings?
I would be interested to know that,
because in Coronation Street you have to have an explosion. Really, if you're going to have a dramatic fire, I'd say you want it to be important and people get on the front of the soap mags. You've got to have an explosion.
Yeah.
I don't know what is
how.
Exploding.
Not sure how often that happens in real life. But yeah, what you also can't do is walk away dramatically from the explosion, because you're more likely to be shaken off your feet. But in action, when Abby set that car on fire, I suppose she was a fairly good distance from it that time. The other thing is they're not too bad at this on Corrie, I would say, but kicking down a door or window to get in or out of somewhere, not particularly a good idea, because that's going to oxygenate the fire, and that's going to cause a bit of a backdraft. So I think when we go through the fires today, maybe we should see whether our Corrie residents followed those rules or not, or whether they were just utterly reckless. I think I've got a feeling which one it's going to be. I mean, so
there's a lot of things that can explode apparently in your house. I just asked ChatGPT, and eggs could explode.
Eggs?
Says, you've got to be careful.
Can you imagine that in the Platt fire this week? Just a load of eggs popping out the back window. Was
it Ghostbusters where eggs exploded?
It sounds about right, yeah.
Aerosol cans, gas cylinders, fire extinguishers. Well, that's ironic, isn't it? Batteries, bleach.
But I would imagine they'd just make the kind of little fires. Explosions.
I genuinely don't believe there's anything in a normal house that would make an explosion.
Well, it's
like that blows the windows out.
It's good for the drama, isn't it? It's good for the drama, all I can say. I mean, we will talk about this week's fire, I suppose. We'll talk about it mostly on this week's main episode.
Are we going to talk about it now?
You can give a few quick reactions to it, can't we? Now the dust has settled and the embers have burned out, what's your thoughts on this week's Platt fire?
You divided them. I think it would have been better to have done them chronologically. But you divided them to like large, medium and small fires.
Yeah, but I didn't do a particularly good job with that. So you could hop all over the place if you like.
The biggest fires are very dramatic, and I wondered where did this fit on the spectrum of fires. And I would say this was more of a high medium fire than a big one, because
there's only one house, wasn't it?
One house, and I think the main gimmick, if you like, of this fire was that we had the one take.
The tracking shot.
The tracking shot. It wasn't one take, obviously. There were lots of cuts in it. But following the characters around as they were running around and capturing the drama of the crowd.
Outside to inside, lots of whooshing, camera going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
I think there was a lot of focus on that rather than the fire itself, the effects of the fire.
Effects is the right word to use when you describe this week's fire.
I think a lot of people didn't like it, did they? And I enjoyed it when I watched it. I thought it was quite dramatic and fun. I really liked that, you know, the direction. But
I liked the concept of it being one take, but I was just distracted by it, and I was going, oh, there's a join, and I was kind of not paying enough attention to what was actually going on. It was kind of, I was being bamboozled by it, and also I was looking out for the CGI flames, of which there were quite a few, I can tell you that.
I didn't notice them so much. What I noticed, you know, this is my critique of the fire, because I'm now a fire expert. There wasn't smoke. There wasn't enough smoke by half.
You reckon?
Nowhere near. There was no smoke at places. It just looked like it was a bit...
Well, when they came in, there was coughing and splutting all over the place. Nick was coughing for so long, it took him about 60 seconds to realise he should probably drag Toya out.
No, when you compare it to other fires, there was not enough smoke. And the other thing is, a lot of people have said that the neighbours didn't come out. But I think they're just over it now. I think they're like, oh, another fire. It's not on this side of the street. I'm not coming out.
I have seen a lot of criticism of the lack of neighbourly attention to the fire. And definitely if you go back and look at some of the biggies from earlier years in Coronation Street, you get a few more. I suppose on Tuesday, you know, you had Brian turn up and Yasmin very handily happened to be out, so we don't need to worry about what's happened to her at number 6.
If I was going to write like a generic story about a fire, it'd be like, open up to a character who's asleep somewhere at a bed or a sofa. Then we cut to a picture of the spark starting. Then we cut to somebody else going, oh, I wonder where so-and-so is. Then we cut back to the fire and there's smoke everywhere. Then we cut back to somebody walking around on the street and look up and go, oh, there's a fire. Someone call 999. Then we cut to inside the building and then the alarm goes off. And then the person wakes up and starts coughing, then falls over. And then a bunch of people appear outside the street looking at the fire, and then someone goes, where's the fire brigade? The fire's spreading. I don't know where so-and-so is. We've got to get them out. And then some heroic person will go, I'll go. And they knock the door down, the fire comes out, they go inside and they cover their face with their forearm and they look around, and then the person's on the floor, they pick them up and they run out, and as they get out, a big explosion and everyone goes, oh gosh. And then the fire brigade turns up after that, and then the ambulance comes, and then the person who rescues the person gets offered a place in the ambulance, and they say, no, you make sure so-and-so's all right.
You pretty much describe... I mean, that's very close to the first Rovers fire, isn't it, you had there?
And sometimes there might be somebody else that's in there.
So the Rovers...
Who shouldn't have been in there.
You said earlier that the Rovers has been on fire twice. 1986 was the first one. And I think, you know, in terms of iconic Corrie fires, you're not going to get much higher than this, are you?
So remind us what happened in this one.
Well, this was the one where Jack Duckworth, the previous episode, had been asked to change a fuse or something in the basement, and he ends up having to keep replacing it because it's the wrong size. I can't remember, but this was we see. The episode's quite memorable for a variety of reasons. One, I mean, it's even got its own intro sequence. It had like I don't know whether you watched this bit before, but it had like, rather than the usual panning around the backs of the houses, the intro sequence for this was like tower blocks with like still pigeons and...
Yes, I noticed that.
It was odd.
It was odd.
It starts early in the morning. The thing that I liked about this one that I will count against the Platt fire on Monday is the whole episode was the fire. The Platt, I was just waiting for the fire to happen. It didn't really get going until the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Half an hour.
Yeah, of course.
But so this is the most famous. This is the most famous one because Bet throws up.
Yeah, she does.
This is the Bet is sick fire.
This is the Bet is sick fire. This is the one where young Kevin and Sally, came back from a club earlier in the morning. They're having a bit of a snog up against the warehouse or the community centre, whatever it was back then. And then Sally kind of looks across the road up to the Rovers and she's like, "Oh, there's a fire." And then Kevin ends up going in there and trying to help out. Terry Duckworth as well, very notable, just running down the street just in his pyjama bottoms with his moobs a flapping. And
Hey.
but what was going on inside the Rovers was very, very exciting. Julie Goodyear, she literally had to be given oxygen every 4 minutes during this because they actually had proper fire, and this is the stage of health and safety back in 1986. Apparently, her night dress actually kept on set on fire while she was on top of the staircase. There's this brilliant.
You need to set fire to an actor to get a good.
Can you imagine? Imagine these days if somebody actually caught on fire during the scene of this? They were all very, very safe, and
maybe too safe.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, she says Julie Goodyear said that there was a scream that she said at the top of the staircase.
It's a brilliant scream.
I
think that's my favourite. That's my most iconic Corrie fire scream.
But they put an echo over it. I thought it was cheesy. It was
No, I enjoyed it. But anyway, Kevin comes up and drags her out the window, and I think that's the episode that had a really long ending sequence as well, because it was, they had like the full version of the theme music, and the over the credits you see some people boarding up the windows of the Rovers and then getting in their van and pootling off. It felt like a really big event. And I love the fact that the idea behind this fire was that the writers, Tom Elliott and Paul Abbott, were behind this one. They were asked to pitch ideas for episodes that didn't feature the pub as much, because the designers were like, we want to update the Rovers set. It's a little bit, we need to change it up a little bit. So they had to say, well, how can we get rid of the Rovers for a bit? And this was their answer. And these changes were huge. This is when we got rid of the snug and the select from the Rovers. So if you've seen the really old episodes from the 70s, 60s, early 80s as well, I guess, you got the public bar and then this massive side room that couldn't possibly fit inside the building that they used to use for various events and charity shows and
the like
Ruby wedding anniversary celebrations for Hilda and Stan, that kind of thing. And
once Hilda and Stan weren't in it anymore, they were like, just get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Well, they were.
Hilda still had
a year left in the show when this fire was going on. She's not going to have an
anniversary by herself.
She and Stan was long gone, or 2 years gone by this point. And so they ended up just saying it's burnt down and we'll extend the public for a little bit, but it didn't quite fit the same unrealistic footprint that the last one did. But this is the birth of the modern Rovers that we know today.
PBC's always going on about how great we are with our Doctor Who and TARDIS. Well, it's bigger on the inside. Well, okay. ITV had the Rovers that was bigger on the inside. Never went on about it, did they? No.
Time Lord technology that made the Rovers.
They were very humble about it.
This episode as well. I don't have a load of behind the scenes facts for all of these. This is just because this is such an iconic fire. But apparently the episode was first shown at 6:15 in the evening because the World Cup was on. And it didn't get the reviewing figures that they were expecting. So then they put it on the next day as well at 9 p.m.
Watch it.
And the first showing got 14.2 million viewers. And they were like, no, we can do better than that. Can you imagine that? 14 million viewers and them saying, we've got to show it again. And the second showing got 8.6 million viewers as well.
This is like us when we repost one of our episodes that we were really proud of that nobody seems to talk about.
Yeah.
We're like, why don't you? Did you not see this one? Because this is really good.
Or like when we could retweet something.
Yeah. Like,
this was the retweeting of the day, wasn't it?
It was.
So impressions of that fire, Gemma? Is it rose tinted spectacles, or was that actually a fantastic piece of event telly?
It's more the iconic status of the Rovers that makes this so good, and Julie Goodyear's performance and being sick and everything. I don't know who told her to be sick. Or she just, decided to do it. Yeah,
I don't think, and I might be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. I don't think there's been any other fire six in the whole of Coronation Street. The one and only.
People are not sick as much as you'd think they would be, because, when you hurt yourself, if you have a sudden pain, don't you feel sick?
I haven't been sick for 25 years. That's my claim to fame, actually.
I'm sick all the time.
Gemma's always throwing up for one reason or another. She definitely would if she was in a fire.
No, I'm not always throwing up it's because I get a grotty throat and then I go, ooh. If I tried to clear my throat, I go, ooh.
Thanks for that.
I'm
Anyway,
not throwing up all the time. It makes me sound like I've got some kind of bizarre
projectile vomiting. But I liked the extra touch. I mean, I assume this was planned and it wasn't real sick, but it's those little creative details that really add something to the scene, isn't it? It's fantastic.
I like an actress who's not afraid to get a nightie on fire and throw it up down herself.
Yeah, exactly.
And then crawl through it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't make them like they used to, I tell you what.
I know. So then we had the second Rovers fire. That was 2013. So maybe some of our listeners might be a bit more...
So the first one was 1986.
Yeah,
and this one's been a while.
Yeah, a little while had passed. 30 years had passed.
We're due another one, maybe.
We're due another fire. This was Phil Collinson, who was the producer at the time, saying, "I'm going out with a bang." And he's the one that's gone on and has been working on Doctor Who now, isn't he, Phil Collinson? And he said, "Look, I'm gonna do a stunt that is as big as the tram crash." And yes, we will come to the tram crash later.
Yeah,
a whole year this took to plan, and they were cutting the budget everywhere for the programme in the 12 months. Well, yeah, but this time they had a reason. They scrimped and they saved so that they would have enough for this second Rovers fire. And the whole thing, which was kind of spread over like 3 episodes or so, took 4 or 5 weeks to film. Filmed in a warehouse. They actually had health and safety and everything at this point. So I don't think that Michelle Collins ended up with singed knickers while she was filming these scenes. They had this huge warehouse. A replica of the pub was built. I mean, this was similar to what we've seen this week with the Platt's house, actually. And I know that the inside of the Platt's house isn't actually inside the shell of the building. But there was a cool thing that they put on Instagram this week that showed like a recreation of the Platt set inside the shell of the Underworld building, and that's the one they used to set on fire, so it wasn't in the usual studio. But anyway, this is in a warehouse. Well, there was a new upstairs set. There was a cellar. We saw an awful lot of the Rovers in this episode. This was pretty cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, so this was Carl had been going out with Sunita, and he got jealous. And he tried to frame Jason.
He was jealous of Stella.
Stella and Jason.
Yeah, Stella and Jason had a bit of a age gap romance, didn't they? Stella and Carl had been together, but then when things turned sour with Sunita, between Carl and Sunita, Carl started looking at his ex-missus and going, "Hang on a minute, she's knocking off some hunky builder boy. I don't like this." So
he sets fire to a bit of paper in the Rovers, and Sunita catches him. He pushes her down the stairs and knocks her unconscious, and then he runs off. She collapses. She sort of wakes up but then collapses back again.
Yeah, she'd like followed him down the ginnel into the Rovers to find out what he was up to, and this was in the basement, wasn't it? I always love it when they showed the basement. We haven't seen inside there for years now.
So Stella's up in the bedroom, and she's like banging on the window going, help me, I can't really shout because I'm doing my northern accent and I can't talk loudly."
Well, there's some bathroom scenes as well. I think she's in the bathroom with the candles on when the fire first starts, but obviously he doesn't know that she's in there at this time.
So Carl has to go and rescue her.
Yeah, anyone who was anyone in that street was in the bistro at this point, because this is when they had the full Monty on. And I think Carl was part of that as well, and he'd done a little bit of a sneaking away for this. So he kind of realises, oh heck, Stella's in there. And so
he rescues her, and then Tony the fire lady goes in as well, and so does Paul the fireman.
Yeah.
And she dies because everyone gets out.
We did have a death
from her.
Yeah.
And something falls on her head.
I was like, I'm gonna say that, although fires are obviously devastating to the properties in Coronation Street, you've actually got quite good odds of surviving it.
Hardly anyone dies in a fire.
No, very few fire mortalities in Weatherfield.
I mean, Sunita died in hospital.
Yeah,
from this.
Yeah, no. Carl took out her breathing equipment, didn't he? Because she would have lived otherwise. That was quite fun, because I think we knew that Shobna Gulati was leaving, and I think everybody assumed that she would die in the fire. Right. And there was a great scene of her walking through the bar on fire. It was that was ace. That was really smart.
Fire. The bar was on fire.
Yes.
So she,
but she gets out. Yeah.
Yeah, so who's died of a fire? I don't think many people
genuinely
have.
I mean, I suppose Cal did,
Tony,
didn't he? Yeah.
I mean, nobody cares about Tony.
No, it's pretty fine. Even Leanne the rabbit, Simon's pet rabbit, survived a fire, and he had no good reason to. I'll tell you that. Why
don't people die from fires in Corrie? I don't understand. Is it because they happen so frequently?
I don't know. It seems like, it'd be a sensible thing to do, but you're right. Tony, who cares? She'd only been in it a few months.
I've got a theory. I've got a conspiracy theory.
What?
You know how when they did the tram crash, the tram people were like, you can use our tram, but you have to make it look like it wasn't the tram's fault.
Yeah.
Maybe the fire brigade are like, you can use our equipment.
You can have a lend of our fire engine.
But you can't kill anybody with fire because we love fire. We want people to have more fires and we don't want to...
No, I thought you were going to say that it makes them look bad if they don't rescue people.
Well, our firemen have to rescue everybody.
Although I would also be interested, and maybe again we will realise this as we're going through the fires, how many people were rescued by fire officers versus rescued by helpful neighbours?
I don't think hardly anyone gets rescued by fire people. I think they just turn up and go, oh yeah, that's a fire.
That's probably why they always turn up so late, because it's like, what's that? Ring 999, what? Another fire in Weatherfield? We'll be there in half an hour, love. You sort yourselves out, and then we'll come and clean up the mess afterwards.
Just a normal drill, isn't it? Send one of the brave ones in.
I thought this was a really good fire, the Rovers.
This was more elaborate than the first one, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, as I say, it was 30 years. You had a lot more experience. You had a lot more budget. You had... Yeah, it was brilliant. The inside of the burning bar was quite a spectacle.
Yeah. And you got to see, like you said, because they constructed a set in a warehouse, you got to see, all the levels on fire.
Mm. Yeah. And you, like you said, Carl did rescue Stella, but he came out of the pub first. He was watching it for a bit, and that's when they realise that Stella's banging on the window. So he lets himself around the back. He goes, again, back into a burning building. Don't do it. But he did, and there was, going up the stairs. Like, the whole pub, this iconic Corrie landmark, was all aflame. That I'm going to say that's a good fire. Again, it's Stella.
Why did you rescue her?
Yeah, she's not the most thrilling of characters, is she? But unfortunately for her, you can't avoid the comparisons to Bet. And I think there was an awful lot more people who had, who were attached to Bet and wanted her to survive. Nobody was going, kill her off Bet. But I bet there were some mean-spirited Corrie viewers back in 2013 that were hoping that Stella would go from her usual beige to a charred brown.
No.
What are some of the like big fires that stand out for you over the years?
Well, I think the Victoria Court fire I always remember because it always sounds like you're saying a character called Victoria Caught on Fire. And I can't help but laugh in my head when I say Victoria Caught Fire.
The only person who's actually caught on fire in Coronation Street that I remember is Anna Windass.
Now, can we just briefly talk about this? Because poor, who was the actress?
Gosh, who played her? I've lost... Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
So...
Debbie Rush.
So poor Debbie Rush, right? So was it? I can't remember the circumstances. I did just watch it, but only the fire bit. So David's in a car or something gets knocked over.
This was when David had been planning to ram raid the prison when when Clayton had his court appearance, and then he ended up getting locked inside the basement of the bistro. Who knew that existed? So because Gail and that lot didn't want
it up now.
Clearly, Gail and that lot didn't want him to go and make a mischief of himself. So he ends up getting out of there, escaping, getting into a car, running down the road, or driving down the road. There's a skip with a ramp on it. He ends up doing a little flip, careening down the street, and ends up in a flaming inferno at the bottom of the street by the medical centre.
And there's some kind of like flammable liquid, isn't there, that gets knocked?
Yeah.
And then the fire...
It's great. There's a jerry can, I think is the word that I've learned from Coronation Street this week, of gas and petrol.
Firelighter.
Yeah, that gets blown forward when David's car explodes. He's fine, by the way, if anyone's worried. And it kind of cartwheels down the cobbles right towards Anna Windass, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then the flames kind of follow after it and set her on fire.
Poor Debbie Rush had to just stand there because, so the fire kind of comes up to her and it kind of goes up her legs. But because of I'm guessing this is what happened, because she had some kind of flammable, like, suit on or some kind of thing, she had to stand still. But you would never stand still if you were being caught on fire. You'd run or like flip or jump backwards. But she stands there.
I don't know. She might have been in shock.
She waves her hands like Wallace.
Yeah,
and
I always think of
backwards.
Wallace and Wendelin when she's doing that.
And screams, and then everybody puts her legs out, and Pat Phelan's watching and laughing.
Well, this is where Pat Phelan's
evil side.
slight of calling her the char-grilled fishwife came from,
Horrible.
which was brilliant. And, you know, we loved to hate Debbie Rush's character, didn't we, Anna Windass?
I really
because
did
we
like
loved
Anna.
because we love Phelan so much, and she was his nemesis. So when she caught on fire, it was quite fun. Anyway, you going back to the Victoria Court fire. So this was only a couple of years after the Rovers had set on fire.
Yeah,
so the
2
new
years
producer
later,
was like,
literally.
well, let's do it again.
Oh yeah, fire! I can do a fire.
And it's taken another 10 years to have a fire quite so big with the plats. Although, you know, like you said, the plats large to medium, I suppose. And if you get rid of all the CGI fires, it's not much more than a little spark.
At the moment, I do think that it's almost every year there's a fire on Coronation Street.
We're getting there, but a lot of them are just a little bit small, aren't they?
There has been a fire almost every year since like 2019.
Well, this is the thing. Like, how long will a fire continue to, you know, shock you, you know, take your breath away, make you worried? Or when does a fire become just another? You know, what else happens quite often? Car crash or somebody gets hit by a car. I'm kind of a bit numb to that in Corrie now. I
think they overuse fires, and I think people need to die in a fire. But anyway,
I think they need to raise the stakes. You're right.
Victoria Court fire. Actually, 2 people died. I forgot about Maddie. How could I forget?
Yeah, Maddie. I mean, she didn't die in the burning building of Victoria
Court. She got blown
Court.
up.
I think that's something. I've got a feeling. Well, I have read that people don't generally look on the Victoria Court fire as being a great set of episodes, and it's difficult for me to remember. But looking back, my memories of it, I don't even know what I thought about it at the time. I can't remember now. But when I look back on it and rewatch clips of it, I think no, that was actually a really good fire. Yes, it had characters being stupid. Like at the end of it, basically, you got Cal, Leanne, Amy coming down a ladder to escape, and then Leanne decides to take a moment to pause and shout out to Cal, "Yes, I will marry you." And Cal's at the top there going,
"Get out of the way!
But can I get on the ladder,
but
please?"
Also,
and then he ends up dying.
Cal died from being polite, because I would be climbing over Leanne. I don't. Why do we have to use the ladder individually? Why? What's the word at this point? Right, health and safety, yeah, important. But at this point, what's the worst possible thing that can happen if we both go on the ladder at the same time? We fall, okay? We might break our legs. We're not going to get blown up, are we?
Well, Cal's unfortunate. You know, what happened with him was there was a gas canister on one of the balconies out there, wasn't it?
Well, it's from a barbecue, I think.
Yeah, and he sees that the fire's spreading to there, and then there's a big boom.
So this was Carla in the flat, and Amy was there with her, and Tracy sets it on fire because she doesn't know that Amy's
she accidentally sets it on fire, and that was a great twist. That was another thing that I think that the Victoria Court fire has in its favour. Although we went into the week knowing that the flats would be on fire, we didn't know that Amy was going to be in there. No. And Tracy goes to kill Carla.
Yeah, she wants to bosh her on the head like she did with Charlie.
Yeah, but she chickens out of it, leaves a candle burning next to a lamp, that catches on fire. And the whole place goes up. And there is another kind of brave rescue by some characters.
So Cal and Leanne go in to rescue Amy, and that's why they're in there. And then Amy gets out, and then, like you said, Cal gets blown up. Meanwhile, we've also got Maddie confronting Jenny, who's wearing her wig, gone completely bonkers.
Over at number 13.
And then Maddie's trying to warn everybody about what Jenny's up to, and she runs across the cordoned off area.
Jenny was planning to kidnap Jack, wasn't she, at this point? Little baby Jack as he was then. Yeah, she runs through a cordoned area. And this again, another great twist of this was, I don't think we knew that the builder's yard, I didn't remember knowing whether the builder's yard was going to go up in flame. And you thought that they'd basically got the fire at Victoria Court under control. And then you see this, then there's an explosion and a little spark of it drops near the builder's yard, and there's oily rags or whatever. And then it was an advert break, and I was like, oh, what's going to happen there? And Maddie ends up running past it just as something explodes there, and she ends up
running with the elephants.
Yeah, she doesn't. She didn't make it. So that was a proper high stakes fire with big casualties, and I'm gonna say, unfairly maligned.
Well,
but maybe I need to watch the whole thing again to see whether I can pick holes in it. I don't know.
They worked with this company called Real SFX, didn't they, to make this happen?
Yeah, I think that they did the Rovers fire as well.
Yeah,
and there's a few behind the scenes details about that I found. Like, you had a team of 6 people. They set all the fires up, the explosive. There were 30 or so gas feeds into the sets, and that's how they do it. If you want to have a little flame, little fires poking out from here, there, and everywhere, you'll just hook up the gas to it and turn it on like a big Bunsen burner.
Yeah.
So it's all very, very controlled.
Turn it up and down.
Yeah, you don't just, chuck a match and hope that it doesn't spread to the places that you don't want it to spread to. Everyone on the set had clothes that were fireproof.
They're not going to get caught out again, are they?
No, Judy Goodyear. That's it's a bit like after the Titanic, isn't it? They had to make sure they had all the right number of lifeboats. And there was a fun behind the scenes video of this with Jane Danson, kind of very excitedly giving a tour of, hey, look, we're
Jane
doing a big fire.
Danson is always around the fire.
She is. I'm gonna say
Leanne is the most flammable character.
Yeah, I think she is. But yeah, she's going around and she says, "Oh, look, my clothes have all been sprayed with this stuff, and now they're all crinkly."
Maybe she's inflammable. No, that means flammable as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
She's unflammable because she hardly ever gets involved in the fire, but she's always there.
She is. She had many suspiciously high number of lucky mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the cast were like, right, if you run that way, you run that way. If it gets too much, here's a signal you got to say.
Yes.
And the St John's ambulance was there, and all the firefighters that you saw on the screen, they were real.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think at this one, they did get at least one member of the public phoning up 999 saying, I've just heard a massive explosion. I can see flames coming from Media City. Get down there.
Media City?
Yeah, they'd moved by this point. And
they do let you know, because I can't remember how... Oh,
this one last year, there were leaflets, weren't
there? Yeah, they let the residents of the area go, like, don't phone up, please. But you know what? I've just had a great idea for a gritty ITV drama.
Go on.
How about a writer on a TV show plans a massive stunt, right, that needs all the firefighters to come and stand by, and then sets another fire somewhere else to kill off somebody, and then maybe it's an actor in the show and nobody believes that they're really in danger because they think it's
there you go, get that down, all you aspiring
write it down. I don't see how
there.
You could fit it into Coronation Street.
Give Gemma a little credit at the end of it. So yeah, I think I enjoyed the Victoria Court fire, and that.
Well, it's because 2 people died.
Yeah,
this is the highest body count of any fire ever,
and I think
isn't it?
I think the fire kind of did last over a few episodes. This was another Britain's Got Talent week, and I think it starts on the Tuesday and is all out by the Thursday. But you had that Wednesday episode in the middle that was full on fire action. And again, I don't want to keep ragging on this Platt fire, but that really was kind of over within 5 minutes, wasn't it?
Well, it was the end of one episode at the beginning of the next episode. Yeah,
but they even repeated a bit at
the
beginning of Tuesdays.
I think the long-term effects are going to be more pronounced. That house is going to be out of action.
That is a much more iconic building to set on fire, and that does give it point. We should be ranking these fires, from Little Spark up to Raging Inferno or something. Wow. But yeah, I think the Platt's house is going to be boarded up for a while now. It barely feels like it's been redecorated since it was built, does it?
It's huge. We're just looking at it today. It's actually really, it's the biggest house by far. Because the other two,
I don't know. I think Sally and Tim's have got
because they've got this Gale's Annex.
Yeah,
it's true. It's a girthy one.
It is. But yeah, I hope that they are able to give it a proper renovation. End of it, proper modernisation.
We're not really talking about aftermaths of fires, but I anticipate some kind of significantly long story is going to come out of.
Oh yeah,
this.
for sure.
Now, we said Tony the fire lady died, but she's not the only Tony that's died in a fire, because Tony Gordon.
Oh, Tony Gordon, he died in a fire. We get into that one, are we?
I think if you set yourself, I think if you're named Tony, just run.
Yeah.
Because how many Tonys have there ever been in Coronation Street? We're not many.
Yeah, Tony Gordon. So this was another Britain's Got Talent week, wasn't it? This is 2010. I'm gonna say the Underworld Siege.
Yeah, and he also killed off Hugo.
Oh yeah, from the Vicar of Dibley.
But that wasn't during the fire. That was a fight.
There wasn't a whole lot of fire in this episode. The drama of this week was more Tony's got out. He's got Hayley and Carla captive in Underworld. Hayley gets out, and then at the very end, you got a few minutes of fire at the end, but it spreads fast. And being in a factory full of probably very highly flammable knickers, that's going to go up with a massive whoosh.
So this was Carla, and Tony. She and Hayley get held hostage by Tony, who's gone completely bonkers by this point. He'd escaped from prison, hadn't he? And he tied everybody up. At one point, he kidnaps Maria. She's the one that she gets out.
Maria was there as well, wasn't she?
She gets out and raises the alarm, and then everyone knows that Tony's escaped, and they're all on the lookout. But somehow he manages to still sneak in and set fire to the whole bloody factory. Now the factory and the warehouse and all that kind of bit, that seems to catch on fire quite a lot.
The factory is, I'm gonna say. I mean, I think there's been more factory fires than there have been even the Rovers. I mean, the Rovers was twice, but the factory's been on fire quite a few times.
There was that bit with Hope when she was in the factory.
We have to have a whole segment for Hope later.
I really want Hope to do a massive fire.
I think she's got to.
She has to.
It's going to be a disappointment if she fizzles out. Yeah, but the fire in this one was basically Tony realising that his number was up, and so he started to he threw a match down onto a part of some knickers or what have you, and the intention was that the pair of them would die together. And Carla, not so chuffed with that idea, tries to escape, and they have this epic fight among the flames that was really visually quite fun. And she's running up the top of the upstairs in the factory. There's fire all around. She jumps down into a box of lingerie, fabric. Yeah, it's really, really fun. And Tony's there at one point, grabbing hold of her and saying, "Don't fight it! Let's just go out.
Look at the flames!
Look at the flames!" Yeah. So she ends up biting him, escaping, and they have a bit more of a chase. She's got a gun. It's all this is high Hollywood action here, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was over a few episodes.
But the fire bit wasn't, but the siege was.
So she eventually she escapes him, runs out, and everyone is standing outside because obviously they can see the flames and they know that Tony's in there because Maria told them, and Hayley at this point has also been let out, and so Carla runs outside and Tony comes to the door, looks out, and she's going, "Get out!" And then he kind of turns around sadly and walks back into the fire to die.
That was epic.
And then there's a bunch of huge explosions fire. And everyone goes, "Ah!"
Yeah.
I think we should talk about all the times that that there's been a warehouse fire, because there was one before that, wasn't there?
Well, the original warehouse fire was one of Corrie's earliest fires.
And this is not the same. So the factory and the warehouse are two different places, but they're in the same location, kind of, because the warehouse was all the way across where the Maisonettes are.
For a few years in the 70s, they had this mail order warehouse.
The road has been many different things. So it was at one point this big warehouse.
Yeah. So this was a celebration of the show's 15th anniversary, and it coincided with Ken Barlow's 1000th episode as well.
He didn't do much though.
No, he didn't have a whole lot to do.
He's already been in a fire years ago. We'll get to that.
This was pretty much where the
He's been in two fires by this point.
Yeah. There were earlier fires than this. There were black and white fires. This is glorious.
We'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah. So I found watching this quite interesting how much they just showed of the firemen coming, unraveling their hoses, unscrewing a thing in the cobbles and getting the water out from the ground. There was an awful lot of the just general rescue scenes and spraying the hoses onto the flames and.
Well, let's say what the main story of it was. So. There's a bunch of naughty teens that are playing havoc on the street, doing all kinds of vandalism and stuff. And they're
mostly going after Ken.
Yeah, and there's a parent who's trying to discipline them, and they go and hide in the warehouse storeroom from him, and they're naughty because they have a cigarette there, and they leave a cigarette burning in the in part of the factory in the warehouse. They leave. They don't realise that they've left this fire. Then we get to see Edna and Ivy. They're having a bit of an argument, aren't they?
Yeah, Edna G is a character that I'm gonna say neither of us knew a whole lot about. I don't think that she wasn't a main character, was she? Although she was more of a character than at this point than her husband Fred was, who then went on to become a very legendary Rovers potsman. But yeah, she just happens to go out. She's being berated by Ivy because of shoddy work.
So she gets fed up. She goes off to have a cigarette. She opens the door of this room that's on fire and just gets blown away. You never see her again.
I'm gonna say. Yeah, I mean, she dies. This is probably the earliest Corrie fire casualty. Probably the most comedic one, because she literally does just go up in a puff of smoke, doesn't she? That she opens the door. It's because of the backdraft that I was talking about earlier. This fireball just engulfs her completely. Massive load of smoke as well. And she goes, ah! And that's the last that we see of poor Edna G. As I was watching a bit more of that episode, and as kind of people start to realise what's going on, I think that they say that they found another body as well. I'm not really sure who that is. So I think there was possibly 2 casualties from that fire there. But that was a great episode, and it had everyone running around outside. Everyone saying, what's happened to Edna? There's random extras. We didn't get any of that this week. And there's a few nice shots inside the burning building as well. There's one scene of the firemen coming in and tackling the flames. There's I think the shots that were filmed outside on the Grape Street set there were mostly contained to a few flames at the window and smoke coming out. It wasn't loads, but it felt really busy, and because it was during the day as well, it feels like quite a lot of the fires happen at night on Coronation Street. I suppose that's more visually exciting, isn't it? Having the bright orange contrasting with the blackness of night. But this was just a daytime one, and it did mean that there were more people around to spectate.
I wonder whether it's just easier to overrun if you have it at night time.
Yeah, probably.
Because they're like, oh, I've got to put the fire out because it's 4:00.
Yeah. Well, it feels like these days fires take a very long time to film, don't they? Was it?
This is all the health and safety nonsense.
I think it was the Rovers fire that was filmed over 3 or 4 weeks or so, and even this one in the Platts, because we saw this leaflet they put out saying, "Watch out, there's going to be fires." That took 3-4 nights maybe to film, and I get the impression, and I may be wrong here, that back in the day, despite the fact that they didn't have anywhere near as many episodes to film, they just kind of bashed it out in one day, and what they got was what they got, you know?
I know, yeah.
They also had, the after effects of this fire was, everyone was evacuated to Bessie Street School, so there were some quite fun scenes there of the street just looking miserable. They did evacuate the whole street with this fire.
I think
and it feels like that doesn't happen quite so much these days.
No, you should get evacuated, really.
Well, on that same place, a few years before, and because they comment on this in the episode, there was the Maisonette fire as well.
Yeah, so that was just 4 years before.
Yeah,
and this was a death fire.
This was a death fire.
Yeah, very important character.
I don't know whether I'm going to count this as, it wasn't the fire that killed Val
What?
Barlow, was it? Well, it wasn't. She was electrocuted.
Okay.
But she was, the Maisonettes were, they were there erected for about 2 years on the opposite side of the street. And it was never really particularly popular or beloved set, and it wasn't populated as well.
They wanted space to expand the cast maybe, and they didn't have where to put them to live, and so Val and Ken and the twins lived there.
Yeah, there weren't many other people. There was that old woman, Edie Spicer or something. Her name, Effie Spicer. That's it. She lived there, but she's nothing much come of her.
When I think of Effie Trinket.
So by 1971, the showrunners were like, we need to get rid of this. This is a bad move. You wouldn't have that on Corrie these days. No. Can you imagine erecting a front of a huge set of Maisonettes and after a couple of years saying, let's burn it down? It'd be the equivalent of them having a precinct fire now.
Yeah, it would.
And then say, you know what, this precinct set cost us how many £1 million to put together? Let's just raise it to the ground, shall we?
I'm not fussed on it anymore, are you? Should we just...
It really was like that, but yeah, so Val had this hairdryer with was it a faulty fuse? I can't remember.
Well, she changed the plug, didn't she?
And that's right, and she did a bad job of it. That's why you leave it to the men folk, I'd say.
Women can't do electrics, we all know this. So, so the firemen kind of, it starts off with the episode. So she like gets sparks.
Well, that's the very end of the episode. And then we see her kind of passing out, don't we? And I don't think I'd ever seen the following episode until just now. I don't remember seeing it. Because
this was... Val and Ken were supposed to go to Jamaica.
Yeah, they were gonna emigrate.
And this was like they were literally going to go to the leaving do, and that's why Val was getting ready. And so then she selfishly electrocutes herself and sets fire to the house. So the black smoke going everywhere, and everyone's standing in the street. You had Annie and Ina
were there, weren't they? There was Hilda watching as well.
And the firemen are coming and trying to go in, and Ken's like, "Let me in, I need to go in." My wife's
up there.
And it was really hard to see because of the resolution of the copy on YouTube, not very good. But Ken kind of breaks through the cordon, runs upstairs and huddles, I guess, over her body, but I couldn't work it out.
Oh, I didn't think he was. I think he was just realising that...
Well, he was
can't go in, and it's all a bit hopeless.
And we get to see them all staring, so we look over the shoulder up at him. So all the characters, we kind of pan across the back of their heads as they're staring at Ken weeping over his Jamaican holiday that Val's ruined.
It was all over in about 3 minutes or so it wasn't the most exciting fire that Corrie's ever done. But this was the 11th year that the show had been on screen. So actually, it was probably pretty exciting at the time.
But this was a major character's death.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not gonna count it because she electrocuted herself.
Yes, then there was a fire.
But there's also 2 more factory fires.
Well, we're kind of, I suppose at the moment we're talking about what happens on the other side of the street. We're all in the same general location, aren't we?
So the first like on that area where the factory is, the first thing that ever happened was the Masonette fire. Then they built a warehouse there. Then that caught on fire, and that was Edna G. Then there was a big gap, I think.
Yeah, there was another one in the late 90s, and I've got a feeling, and I really meant to find this out, but I forgot. This factory might have been in a different location. So this was Mike Baldwin's factory in 1997. In my head, I just think it's not supposed to have been the factory on Coronation Street. I think it was elsewhere. But as we're talking about factory fire, so we'll just stick it in the same bunch. And this was a great fire because the story leading up to this is that Mike Baldwin had been secretly producing counterfeit goods for the Canadian clothing company Quebec, which Stephen was a worker for, wasn't he? He was like the representative he was the boss of it. And Mike Baldwin had taken his designs and was doing these counterfeit versions. And I think he was getting found out, or he was worried that he was going to get found out or being investigated. He was
on the brink of losing everything because they were going to find out. But Don accidentally did him a favour to get revenge because he hated Mike Baldwin. He breaks in and he pours petrol everywhere. He throws a match on the floor.
Jeff Hinsliff was brilliant in this scene because you could tell how frustrated he was. And he was lighting matches and they weren't lighting, were they? And it's just like, 1997 was Don's last year, so this was all part of Don's unravelling story. He really had a descent into madness, didn't he? And setting Mike's factory on fire was it was brilliant. He's like, laugh your way out of this one, Baldwin. And then we get to see the room on fire. It was pretty spectacular. It was very contained shots. So you didn't get to see huge. You didn't see the outside of it or anything. No, you don't see anyone finding it either. There was nobody going through the flames or anything like that. He literally throws the match, and then we see just a burning building, fire, and then the next day. That's the end of it, and then it's the next day, and he's like, "Oh, did you hear that Mike Baldwin's factory caught on fire?" So it must have been somewhere else because they would have noticed if there was a burning. Well. But the twist is that he actually did Mike Baldwin a favour by burning all the evidence of the counterfeit goods. I loved that. I loved it, and there's a brilliant moment as well where he's trying to trick Mike into What was it? It was a brilliant moment that's completely forgotten now. I think there was a bit where Mike is trying to trick Don into admitting it was him, and Don knows that Mike's recording him or something along those lines. But yeah, just
everything dies.
Mike Baldwin always came out on top, didn't he? And he had this brilliant smile and getting one over on Don, despite the fact that sometimes you just were fighting for Don because he was having a rough time during the 90s, wasn't he? And that was a really fun little fire. But yeah, the other one that was in the factory was the actual Underworld factory, was 2004. So if you've been watching the ITV3 repeats, you'll have seen this one last year. And this was another cigarette fire. I think we also need to maybe do a tally of how they start. Like, how many of these have been arson? How many of them have been poor electrics? How many of them have been cigarette fires? That's kind of seems to be the main.
Well, you're calling bamboozled me now because, right, so the first Rovers fire, what was that? Electrics?
Electrics, yeah.
Right, so...
Are you actually making a list of this?
You told me to do it.
Oh, okay.
Right, and then your second Rovers fire...
That was arson. That was Carl arson about.
Right, yeah. And then Victoria Court fire, that was arson.
Well, accident/arson.
Well, what should I put? Should I put accident or arson?
Put arson.
Right, and then the Platt fire, that was arson.
Yes.
And then the siege fire, that was arson.
Yeah.
The warehouse fire, that was a cigarette.
Cigarette fire, yeah. No smoking.
Okay.
Smoking is
Don't
bad.
Smoke, just vape. Although that catches from fire as well. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, we
accident.
Know that from last year.
The Masonette fire is accident.
Yeah.
And then factory fires, arson. And then Janice factory, cigarette again.
Cigarette,
so
and
now
we're up to date.
Up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was basically, Janice was involved in a story where she was a bit naffed off that she wasn't allowed to smoke at work anymore. So she decides she decides to go into the storeroom to have a cheeky cig. And she's there puffing away in amongst all these rolls of fabric. And then Harry Flagg walks in and she's like, oh, bloody hell. And she chucks the cigarette down so she doesn't get caught into a pile of knickers. And then by the time she kind of hides away, Harry comes in, locks the door. And then then she realises, oh dear, there's a barrel of burning pants over there. And then
so she kicks it all over the place, which is the classic.
Yeah. This was a really good fire as well. Having somebody trapped in a fire of their own making by being a bit sneaky. And the fact that it was Janice as well, so she was, giving it some and hollering and belting, and because all the girls in the factory were listening to music, weren't they? So she was sort of banging on the door going, help, 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 and they didn't hear her. And then you get this brilliant bit where she climbs up some shelves, doesn't she, and falls backwards. Secured against the wall. No, it was just one disaster after the next, really.
So they all the alarm goes off. All the girls think it's just a drill, but then they see the smoke and they panic and run outside. And Nick realizes that Janice is inside, and this isn't a buff the big Nick.
This is Adam Rickett.
This is Adam Rickett Nick, who
but
I wouldn't trust him to carry me.
I wouldn't trust him in a fire. The amount of product he probably had in his hair and
like
right up there.
So he rescues her though, very brave.
Yes.
And he hoists her out, and she gets CPR outside, and she's fine.
She's
so nobody dies in
right,
that one either.
She's all right. That was quite good. It was lowish key, but having a whole room on fire with Janice running about like a mad thing inside was quite the spectacle.
So there's another like.
I think that was it for the factory. That was it for the factory fires, wasn't it?
But let's talk about work fires. So the garage fire in 2017. So this was the one next to the bistro. Yeah,
if you remember because there was back in 2017, Kevin very, very briefly expanded into one of the arches next to the bistro. This is where
Gary's place is now.
No, maybe, yes.
Well,
maybe.
It's over there.
It's over there.
He doesn't have any more because it caught on fire.
Yeah.
So this was arson. So I'm going to put a tick in my arson file.
This was Andy Carver, who had been coerced into setting the garage on fire by Pat Phelan, because Pat had been having a bit of a naughty conversation with Todd, I think, about his various misdemeanors. Was it the flat scam? I don't know. And then he realises that Kev's got CCTV, which he still does to this very day, as we found out this week.
He knows how to check it on his phone.
Yeah, very good. And so he says to Andy, who kind of owed him one, because I think Andy had whacked Phelan round the head, hadn't he, a month or two before, and Phelan, rather than reporting him, ended up just using Andy as his little minion. Because he had him by the short and curlers, and Andy goes in there, and it wasn't much of a fire, that one, was it? He kind of chucking spirits around all over the place, sets fire to a rag. There was maybe one scene where the flames are building up around him. It was, he just kind of runs out in the end, and that's the end of that. But it was a good story. I mean, it was all part of the epic Phelan saga.
We forgot the other factory fire, which was Hope setting fire to the factory in 2019.
Oh yeah.
So that's another arson.
Arson about, yeah.
There's not really much more to talk about that. What about the one that we just had last year, the Builders Yard fire? That's another
another workplace fire.
I'm surprised the Builders Yard hasn't caught on fire. Do we count?
Considering how much wood it is there, that seems like ripe for fire.
No, it caught on fire when Maddie got exploded.
Yeah.
But this was the second time, so that was last year, and this was was it? It was the electric heater.
Ed had been up
it on
there.
So that's an accident.
Ed had been shunned by his family for his gambling habits, hadn't he? And then he'd been stealing all their Christmas presents and selling them off.
He got kicked out of the house.
Yeah, so he goes up to the Builders Yard and has a bit of a sad time there.
But then he wants some chips.
Yeah, so he goes out. This was quite good because there was a little bit of a mystery about whether he had done it on purpose. Yeah. Was it an insurance job? But it turned out that no, he didn't set the fire on purpose, but he did see there was a fire and continued to let it burn, I think, because he's like, well, I might as well get a bit of money out of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, Michael also discovers it, doesn't he? He goes up there and ends up getting trapped upside. I thought it was quite good. There was a cool scene of the camera panning away from the window upstairs, and Michael's there banging on the window while the flames are behind him. I thought that was a quite good one, and it was really early in the year as well. I think it was in the first few weeks of 2024, and
yeah, I mean, they did build a special staircase, which I don't like.
Oh yes, yeah, that's how he gets rescued. Who was it that rescues him in the end? Is it Ed? Oh, Damon.
Damon's the one who shouts, "Oh, there's a fire!"
Yeah,
and then they all run over, and then
yeah, but you're right.
Dee Dee and Joel turn up, and Michael's in the back of the ambulance, and then he wants his dad to go with him, and Ed's like, "Oh, we're back friends again."
Yeah.
So it was a good fire, really.
Yeah, that was.
Because it brought them together.
United them, didn't it? Yeah, but like you said, they had to construct a whole new set of stairs just for that scene. Just so that there was an exit route for them. Oh, I'm not particularly fussed.
I'm trying to think of like other. I think that the cafe. There's a cafe fire.
Yeah, the cafe's been considering the fact that there's hot chip pans and all sorts going on there, the cafe hasn't set on fire too often.
So this was 2007.
Yeah,
and it was an electrical fault. So I put an accident, and Lloyd rescues Becky, and everyone thinks it was her that did it, but it wasn't.
That was just kind of a load of smoke, really, wasn't it? I'm not convinced that we even saw flames for that one.
No, that was a bit
low effort fire.
But then the next year we had another business fire, and that was Valandro's. And this was bloody Leanne again.
Yeah, Leanne again.
With Paul Clayton. This was arson, so he sets the fire on purpose. He puts a load of oil in a pan and he leaves it.
Yeah, I think this was Leanne's idea. I think because Leanne owned Valandro's, which was the fancy Italian restaurant, I'm gonna say. And she needed that restaurant gone, and she needed the money from it. So the pair of them conspire to set it alight and having a bit of an insurance job. And you get to see him lighting the flame. You get to see the pan of with quite a large flame coming out of it. And I think you also get a scene of the fire spreading through the kitchen, but there's nobody inside it. See, if I'm rating the Corrie fires, for it to be a truly epic one, you have to have somebody in the room surrounded by flames at some point. There's got to be an element of danger, and I'm going to say there wasn't this one, apart from, are they actually going to get caught? The only minor setback to this one was after Paul had set the fire, he's all ready to leg it, and then Amber comes into the restaurant, doesn't she? And she's kind of delaying
she's like,
him.
What's that noise?
Yeah, and he says, "Oh, it's just a dodgy boiler." And then, "Come on, let's go." But yeah, bit of a low key fire, but it was all adding up to Leanne's criminal record. I think that was definitely one of the confessions when she had a upload session with Rowan last year.
Yeah, no one died in that one.
No deaths in that one.
We also had a speed dial fire in 2021, and this was another arson because this was
this is Hashim's lot, wasn't it?
Zidane starts the fire, and Stu like, oh, is Stu gonna die? No, he's gonna move to Germany.
That was a naff fire.
It was
2021. I mean, there were still some COVID restrictions in place properly, but I'm not completely convinced there were actually any flames in there. They might have all just been CGI'd on afterwards. So I watched it again. We do kind of rag on that fire a little bit, don't we? And it was a bit better than we thought it. Than I thought before, but really all the flames are just up in front of the camera, and there you got Bill Fellows just kind of panicking around a little bit, and a bit of smoke coming out from under the door of Speed Dial that was going onto Victoria Street.
So this was Zidane set fire to it because Hashim said he'd set fire to Yasmin's house.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I marked it for arson yet already, but I've put a mark there, so there might be 2 arsons when there should only be 1. Okay. So
what else we got? Any other?
I'm trying to think of any other business fires.
I think a lot of the rest of them have been houses since then, haven't they? Yeah. We had
a boat.
I know a business fire. I mean, it was the hardware shop. Sally and Danny's hardware shop caught on fire, didn't it, in the early 2000s? So this was where Prima Donna is now, and it hasn't been a kebab shop all the time. It was a hardware shop at one point.
It was Peter's flat rather than the
fire started in the hardware shop because
right.
Jason had been changing a fuse on the radio because Sally and Jason worked there together for a bit.
Accident.
Puts the wrong fuse in.
Flues.
And then and sadly for Sally, she was just getting ready to sell off all of her stock. She wanted to close down because it was losing her money. It was hemorrhaging money. And then it all goes up in flames. I think she was going to get like 17 grand worth of cash back for all the stock that she was selling, but sadly didn't get the chance. But I suppose the drama with that was that the upstairs, this is where Martin and David were asleep because that was Martin's flat back then, wasn't it?
Having a cute father-son moment,
boys'
watching
night
videos, eating pizza, fall asleep in front of the telly, and then the whole bloody thing catches on fire. And so you had Gail and Richard drive past. Gail sees it. They all run out. There's a bit of an explosion. Windows bursting out. Richard and Tommy go in and drag them out. And Sally comes and she's sobbing because all of their stuff.
It's her business.
So this was Jason's fault. He put the wrong fuse in a radio, apparently.
Yeah, his dad was an electrician and everything as well, wasn't they? Old Tony, probably very disappointed.
But nobody dies in that.
Nobody dies in that one.
But there's,
What about a big business fire that we've missed is that Maya fire. We referenced it earlier, but we haven't talked about it. And I think lots of people are going to say that was probably one of the best fiery moments that Coronation Street has had. Go on then, tell us about this.
Who doesn't love Mad Maya? And I'm just going to put the arson in. She's got 10 now.
Do you give her a tally for every one of Dev's shops that she sets on fire? Because this was an epic string of episodes.
Yeah.
And she's been spurned by Dev. She's just been going.
So she's jealous, isn't she? Jealous of Dev and Sunita's happiness.
Yeah.
And she decides to get that revenge. She tried to ruin the wedding by getting them arrested. Then they sort of shook that off. So she thinks, I know what I'll do. I will go and blow up all of his shops. So she blows them all up, doesn't she?
The episode was fab because Dev ends up being called to one of the shops that's on fire.
Yeah.
And I think there was a scene where he opens the door and gets blown back onto the street behind. And then as he's recovering from that, he gets a phone call from one of the workers at his other shop, and then he hears that one's on fire and he's like, oh no, not another one. And the episode is driving through Weatherfield and just arriving at all these exploding, burning shops. I don't think we saw them all on fire because I think that probably would have been a little bit expensive. But the excitement of Dev just losing everything, and knowing that it was Maya, all 7 of his whole business empire up in smoke, and then the cherry on the top, the grand finale is of course his Coronation Street branch. Yeah, so.
Oh, honestly, Maya is magnificent. She's so wonderful because. What's the actress?
Sasha Bahar, I think.
She she's got such a great accent because she's got this really posh, and she's so evil as well, and her facial
she had a
expressions,
great evil smile.
She's got this beautiful face. And it's contorted with rage and hatred, and she ties Sunita up, doesn't she, and gags her and everything. She's like, "You're dull and boring."
Yeah,
really, really horrible to her. So Dev rushes back and he finds Sunita, he's tied up in the kitchen, and then
she's tied up to the oven or something.
Yeah, then Maya like whacks him over the head, and she's like ranting at him, and they're trying to placate her and get her to let them go, but the police turn up, and so she goes downstairs and she sets fire to a wedding day picture. And I love the fact that this picture exists because they had the wedding, they had the really elaborate, beautiful wedding, but at the wedding they got arrested, both of them.
No, I thought that it was just Dev that got arrested. Maybe
Dev gets. I thought they both did.
I don't remember.
But Dev gets arrested at the very least. But they still printed a picture out.
Happy memories, yeah.
And so she takes this cursed picture.
They probably just look back on the whole thing and laugh.
Probably.
Go, I remember that. That's a story for the kids.
And then she sets fire to it and puts it in the shop. So the shop catches on fire with them upstairs in the flat.
Poor old Shobna Gulati, she's was involved in two pretty big fires, hasn't she?
I think you've got to be in at least 2 fires in Corrie.
Do you reckon?
Before you really can
Before you become a true icon.
That's how
she's a doctor now, isn't she?
Exactly. So anyway, you get to see a few shots that go like through the ceiling. So
this is good. This is a mark of quality for a fire when you get to see the camera panning upstairs
or through.
Yeah. And I'm not
Multiple
talking
rooms.
about like we saw with the Platts this time, where it was kind of they're outside, they're inside. It was a bit of it was a special effect, but the actual practical effect of seeing a flame downstairs panning up, and then you got some characters on a second level. That's pretty special.
Yeah. So this was also the fire where you get Vera doing again. Oh my god! So everybody runs out, don't they? And they're all gawping and watching. Yes. And Rita, Leanne, and Jamie are noticing. This is when they notice the smoke, and Ken's there, Vera's there. This is
what a proper fire should be. Everybody on the street being called out of their houses. It is a spectacle. Everyone gathering there, watching what's going on. And who was it that rescued? Was it Kieran? No, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie Stubbs ends up rescuing Sunita, doesn't he? And Maya's at the far end of the street by the medical centre in a funky red sports car. And the look on her face when she sees that Sunita is free.
Well, no, hang on. This is what happens. So she's in the car and she's watching the carnage, and she sees Dev get rescued, and he's pulled the gag off of his mouth, and he's looking up at the burning flat, and he's screaming for Sunita because she thinks she's dying, and there's Maya in her car like watching this like, oh brilliant, and then she hears Sunita get rescued, and she does this beautiful sneer like oh I can't believe it, and then she like drives her car at them, crashes into the wall, and then she like gets it, like, oh, I'm gonna reverse and get you anyway, and then a lorry hits her. We don't know what happens to Sunita. Maya.
She could still come back.
I would love her to come back so much because she was exceptional.
This is rife for a comeback. I can't think of many characters who would be such a brilliant comeback, and somebody who's still got beef with a major character on the street.
And also the kids too, like, that would be quite a kind of almost Kill Bill-esque kind of revenge if they dispatched her after.
She's still involved in acting. She still does theatre work. Me and her exchanged emails. Like, I emailed her, she emailed me back. She is still doing work.
She's still doing stuff. Yeah. I mean, I genuinely do think that Maya coming back would be on the top 5 of most people's lists of characters to return. I mean,
the question is,
it would be a very short.
It would be a short comeback, and there's the risk that it would be a bit of a damp squib.
Or like it feels like
she went out in a massive blaze of glory, literally,
so great.
And unless they were able to match that, and this was one of. this was by far a top 5 fire on Coronation Street, because this had an explosion as well, didn't it?
2 major characters, loads of explosions, loads of fires.
Yeah, loads of explosions, but the actual corner shop exploded as well. I love it when they have explosions during fires and like the rubble lands at the characters' feet, and then you see like the behind the scenes making of and the far away shots, and somebody's just like chucking bits of wood at them or bits of plastic. Yeah, but absolutely brilliant fire, that one. If you're going to watch any for the drama, it's for the story. It wasn't just a fire story. Some often when there's a fire, it almost comes out of nowhere.
Fire is the main story.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like the whole.
This was the culmination of her
psychotic revenge
massive
story.
Revenge, yeah.
And just how intelligent she was too, and like she threw her whole life away because she was jealous of Dev and Sunita. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But and also at the very end, I felt sorry for them both, because Dev and Sunita both still had their hands sellotaped behind their backs, and they're kind of like trying to hug each other, and all they can do is kind of like chest each other.
Give each other an Eskimo kiss. Yeah. What else should we do? Should we kind of move on to the houses?
Let's talk about some of the so there was a Claire fire.
Yeah, there was Ashley and Claire's house went on fire once. This had an early appearance of Vicky Myers, didn't it?
Yes, she was.
Back in the day when she was not a cop, she was a paramedic, and she comes in and Claire's basically woken up in the middle of the night. The house has been on fire, and it's a bit of a mystery about how it's happened. Because she does a few coughs, doesn't she? Gets rescued.
Well,
and,
she's Freddie, and then she tries to open the door, and her hand gets burned, and then she opens it and she gets blown backwards down the stairs.
She does. She gets catapulted down the stairs,
falls
doesn't
unconscious, and then everyone's outside going, "Oh no, who's inside? I thought they'd gone. I thought they were away." And
yeah, because Ashley wasn't here for this one, was he?
Jamie rescues her.
Jamie Baldwin.
And Jerry Morton tries to go in after Freddie because they all think Freddie's still in there. And Jerry has to get rescued as well, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" Yeah. Eileen's there because she was involved and went to the hospital to see if Claire's all right, and they're all freaking out about Freddie. And Freddie was kidnapped.
Yes, he had been
by the person who started the fire.
Yeah.
Because this was also arson.
Yeah.
And this was Casey. Casey.
Yeah, Casey.
So she set this fire and stole the kid.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that watching this fire back didn't particularly impress me. I wasn't a huge fan of Claire as a character, and I know I'm sorry that a lot of people were big Julia Hayworth fans, but I never was really that into her. So this left me a little bit cold, and sometimes when there's fires and you see the most of it you see is outside on the street and just a few like flames licking at the windows, it doesn't really get my juices flowing. But like I said, Vicky Myers showing up as a paramedic in that clip was pretty funny.
It's definitely a blink and you miss it, because I just did miss it the first time. And then I read on the notes, I should probably go and watch that again.
As we're on that side of the street, and all 3 of those maisonettes on the posh side of the street have gone up in flames now, because in 2020 we had Jeff starting a fire there, didn't he? This was in his final episode. This was the 60th anniversary episode of Coronation Street, and this was particularly notable as well because it was filmed amongst. This is right in the heart of the COVID restrictions, wasn't it? And
yes.
we had months of characters not being able to be anywhere near each other. But I think this was maybe the first and probably one of the only times when the actors bubbled up.
They
to each other, didn't they?
They had to be in each other's. There were all these rules, and they changed all the time, and it's hard to remember. Yeah. But I do recall that if you were in a social bubble with somebody, you couldn't go around anyone else. So the actors. So you had
Ian Bartholomew, Sarah Khan, and Alia and Shelley King, who played Jasmine.
So they were all
got into a social bubble.
They weren't allowed to hang around with anyone else for a certain number of weeks or something to do this. And because this was a very important day, this was the 60th anniversary of Coronation Street, and they'd obviously been planning something for this, and they decided to keep it. It was limited in what they could do. So
the sinkhole that they ended up having the following year was actually what they were going to have for the 60th anniversary, but they needed to have some kind of spectacle. And considering that huge restrictions that they are under, this was pretty good, wasn't it?
Because if you think about the fact that they had this fire going, they would have had to have all these safety people, you know, seeing what was going on. And
well, if you're all done up, if you're all covered head to toe in your fire safety gear, maybe you're allowed
maybe you're all right, yeah.
Not going to pass COVID through a fire mask.
So there was the trial, and after that, Jeff obviously wanted revenge, so he goes and confronts Yasmin in the house. He's already knocked Alia out at speed dial.
And he's whacking with a money box or something.
Yeah. So she's trying to phone the police. He lights a match, it drops it on the floor, and then so Yasmin runs all the way upstairs. We get to see the upstairs of the Nazir's house, and they have a fancy little stairway going up to their attic. So there's a lot of room up there as well. So
you know it's a special episode on Coronation Street when you see the upstairs.
Yeah. So the fire wasn't really a major part of this.
Not particularly, really, but
it's why they're on the roof.
It forces them up rather than out.
So most of the action is them on the roof. You wouldn't even know there was a fire, really.
But somehow Alia pops up as well, doesn't she? Because she'd been knocked out in speed dial, and then she just
wakes up,
comes round, and then she pops out the window, and they have this fun little scuttle along the roof of number 6.
Yeah, and so Jeff's haranguing Yasmin, and then he slips and he's like, "Help me, you idiot!"
Yeah, help me, you stupid woman.
And she tries to, but she's such an idiot that she can't.
She was gripping hold of a roof. I'd like to see you try. She throws him a scarf,
that was a
doesn't
joke.
he? But he just ends up
he
slipping down
fumbles it
further,
and he gets pecked to death on the floor.
Yeah.
So
in terms
that doesn't count as a death, though, does it? From a fire?
No, I'm going to say no. You got to be incinerated, and,
yeah.
and that was a fall that killed him. But so yeah, in terms of was that an exciting and memorable Coronation Street fire? Not particularly, but I do give it plaudits for being done during massive COVID restrictions.
Being under incredible restrictions.
One house fire that I really did enjoy, and maybe it was just the story, was when Audrey's house was set on fire back in 2002. So this was at the height of the Richard drama, when Richard Hillman was trying to convince everybody that Audrey was losing her marbles. And one of the things that he did was sneak into our house late at night.
Arson.
Yeah, that was arson. Set a fire. Set the stove, the hob, on fire.
With a tea towel.
and then leaves
Fun
and sits
fact,
outside. What?
We had that same mug.
What mug?
There's a mug. She was making herself hot chocolate or something.
Oh, was she? I didn't notice.
And that mug, we had that mug for ages. I don't know where it is now. It had a little daisy on it.
Oh, okay.
Weird.
So yeah, we get to see a few scenes of the kitchen ablaze.
Probably fired now. Probably never got that mug back.
I want to know whether they recreated that set, because Grasmere Drive is always filmed on location, isn't it? They don't have a set for it.
It was the same place for years and years and years, and then they moved it very recently.
And
else.
you see as part of the episode, the fire brigade come in and they're standing in the hallway, and then you can see, further into the shot, you got the kitchen on fire, and I was like, did they set somebody's house on fire for this? I'm going to say maybe not, but
well, they must have had a lot of disruption in this street, because it wasn't just a residential street, and it's not that close to anything.
Yeah, we visited it. Yeah,
and so
when you sign up for your house to be involved on Coronation Street, you're not going to expect that it's going to be burnt down.
So Audrey's upstairs alone, sleeping, and then she wakes up and coughs, and luckily Steve and Archie turn up, don't they?
Yes.
Steve the taxi driver gives Archie a lift, and they see that the house is on fire, so they rush in, and Steve kicks the door down.
Oh yeah, and this is Audrey falls down the stairs, doesn't she?
Yeah, a lot of people fall down the stairs. It seems like when there's a fire in Corrie, if you're upstairs, you're going to fall down the stairs trying to escape. So I say stay in bungalows is the best move.
Yeah.
You can just jump out of a window. But she was fine.
She was all right, wasn't she?
Don't worry about her. Then Peter. Now, this was another cigarette. Did we do Peter already?
No, we haven't done Peter. This was
Drunken.
This was drunken
accident.
Peter. I think this is towards the beginning of his alcoholism storyline. He's just enjoying having a drink and a fag in
This
his
is
flat.
2009.
Yeah, he goes to sleep on the sofa. A cigarette rolls out of his hand and onto the carpet. Meanwhile, you got
brilliant.
Simon, little
Cute
baby Simon, asleep in his room, and Leanne the rabbit, named after
Leanne
Battersby, happily. Merrily hopping around in his cage.
But the best part of this was
I can't remember. Am I right? Was Leanne the rabbit a boy rabbit?
I don't.
I
recall.
think he was, and that was part of the
signs.
joke. And that Simon just was so obsessed with Leanne that he wanted to name the rabbit after her, gender be damned.
Yeah. Well, Leanne's gender neutral name now.
Yeah.
Anyway, the best part of this whole thing was how cute Simon was.
He was
because
brilliant.
Deirdre's at home with, I think she is with Blanche, yeah.
Yeah.
And he phones her up and she's like, "Hello, Grandma, what's our address?" And she's like, "Oh, what? Why?" And he says, "Oh, it's just for the fireman, bye." And then she's like, "Oh my God."
He's very practical, is Simon.
Calls him back. And she's like, he answers the phone. He goes, "Grandma, get off the phone. I'm trying to call the fire brigade."
How old is he at this point, do you
don't know,
reckon?
6.
He's like, 6, 7, I reckon.
So she's like, "Oh my God." So she rushes outside, sees the smoke, gets everyone to phone the ambulance and the fire brigade. Simon wakes Peter up, but they both collapse on the way out. So they have to be rescued. Tony and Luke Strong, they rescue them. And I think Luke goes in for the rabbit.
Yeah. Because I'd forgotten. I couldn't remember before I watched this. Does the rabbit survive? And it's hard to tell. Again, it was a not brilliant quality video that's on YouTube for this one, is it? But yeah, no, he does. Because there's the bit where when Simon's on the phone, he's like, "Leanne's not moving. What's happened?"
Yeah.
How on earth this tiny little bunny? And then there was a fair bit of smoke in this scene as well.
Yeah, there was. See, this is what I mean. When you watch the older
rabbit's
ones,
stiff in the cage.
do you compare almost any other Corrie fire? You will notice when you watch the Platt one from this week that there was not enough smoke in it. I just don't think there was. Anyway, so Leanne dies 5 months later.
Yeah, Leanne
from related causes.
Yeah, so sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So oh well. What else did we have?
Well, shall we talk? There was.
Go on.
Go on.
Oh, I just wonder whether we should talk about Hope, because we got a fair way into the episode and not really dwelled upon the arsonist of the street. I mean, out of any character on Coronation Street, she has started the most fires, and she's only a kid. She's only 13, 14.
I'm going to give her own separate category. Of causes of a fire. So Hope.
She set a trampoline on fire.
Yeah, that was in 2017.
Yeah, there wasn't particularly that much of a visual spectacle. It was pretty much just a load of smoke. Do you remember she had a doll with a lighter trapped inside? Like she used to take the head off the doll and there'd be a cigarette lighter inside. She set a bin on fire one time. It was her and Jack. And there was
Jack was such a drip in this scene.
Jack's often a bit of a drip, isn't
he?
So
they basically have a bin and they put a bunch of fire in it and it kind of goes up a bit flamey and then Jack's like, "Oh no!" And then Kevin rescues him in inverted commas.
That scene was great. She's just dancing around brilliant. And she's gleeful. She's jumping around, just so excited about this massive inferno that she's created. Then we talked about the factory fire later. She runs away, doesn't she? Because is there an argument going on at home? I can't remember.
Yeah, she starts that fire. There's gas canisters. Dr. Raleigh has to rescue her. She has to jump into his arms to get away from that. Yeah,
and then you got the fire from it was another kind of lockdown fire in 2021 when she sets fire to the flat that Alina's in, and I don't think there was. Were there any flames in that one? I don't think that there were. Really. It's just a bit dull.
Just smoke.
Yeah. You don't even see her starting the fire, do you, on that one? You see her looking at a candle and some nail varnish remover. And then you cut to Alina in bed and there's some smoke coming from underneath the door. And then she gets rescued. So that was a low effort fire, I'm going to say. And then you alluded to this earlier, last year, she accidentally this time, but it still counts as a Hope fire, sets a bureau ablaze by hiding a dodgy vape inside there.
Yep, that still counts as a Hope fire.
Yeah. They've got to keep this going now, haven't they? They can't cure her.
No, because it'd be dull. Why would you be boring like that? Now,
well, she was kind of a suspect for this plat fire, isn't she? I don't think it was her.
She did it.
But she's got to set a big fire in the future. Otherwise, it's just a build up to nothing.
Now, we've had some classic characters involved in fires, haven't we? Because Ken set the house on fire.
Well, I think one of the earliest fires in Coronation Street actually was Ken. 1965. This was, yeah.
This was an accident because he left some clothes drying too close to the fire. He goes off to buy cigarettes.
Well, the worst thing about this was that his little kids, the twins, Peter and Susan, were asleep upstairs. Val had gone out, and Ken's like, "It's all right. It's the 60s. I can leave my kids asleep in the house and go and get some cigarettes." And he keeps getting delayed.
He ends up entertaining everybody with some kind of like reenactment of a battle or something.
Yeah, everyone in the Rovers.
And then, so the coal falls out of the fire, and then some nappies catch on fire, and then Val runs in and finds everything and kind of like tries to put it out.
This was brilliant because this was all black and white, and you could tell it was a real fire. And then you got poor Anne Reid. She has to like run to this drying rack of flaming nappies and push it over.
Yeah.
Literally, she had to, with her hands, her bare hands, push over some flaming nappies. They wouldn't have them do that these days, would they? But
no.
Anne Reid, proper
actress.
Proper actress.
Don't make it like that anymore. Anyway, so this, I think this is what makes Ken give up smoking.
Yeah, well, good.
So then we had another classic character, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
He puts a blowtorch down in Les's living room in Maudsley Street.
No, Len's living room.
Len.
Yeah.
And when we see him, he's just surrounded by fire, isn't he?
This was fun. Like, he's in a room and the whole table in front of him is on fire, and he's just, Dennis was such a funny character.
Like, oh no.
Yeah, basically, oh my God, what do I do now?
And
this is the famous scene where Patrick Stewart comes in as a fire officer.
Yeah, he's like, "Hello, I'm going to do my booming acting voice," and he clears him out, and he's like, "How did this happen?" And Dennis is like, "Oh, it's a blowtorch." He goes, "That wasn't too clever, was it?" And he's like, "No, not really."
This was one of the first like decent-ish fires. You had to you had to go a bit further to have whole buildings on fire, but to have a table ablaze in the middle of the set, that was probably pretty. That was pretty something, considering we were only talking 1967 here.
Another classic character who set fire to something, David, in his garden in 2001 when he was a little tyke.
Oh yeah, David, another.
He makes a little fire.
He's been around fire quite a lot, that David.
Yeah.
The fire just this week. There was the car with Anna Windass. Yeah, there was a little mini fire in 2001, wasn't there, where he and his mate were doing a little bonfire in the back garden, and then he gets called in for his tea, and then when he comes back again, the whole washing line is on fire.
Yeah, and then that gets put out pretty quick.
We actually, there's no way, not a chance, that in this episode we're covering every single fire. We'll have forgotten some, and there was even some we haven't got notes for here because I just was remembering them through the week.
There's hours and hours and hours and
there
hours.
There are many hours of fires on Coronation Street, like because we just watched one earlier, which was Toya and Spider setting Emily's living room on fire, didn't we? Which was
accident.
That was an accident. They had some candles and they went upstairs into their bathroom to have a bit of a shared scrubbing of each other's backs. Come downstairs, the curtains are aflame.
It's ecological, isn't it, to share a bath?
Yeah, exactly, it was. But the story that followed that was they tried to... Emily was away on holiday, I think, and they tried to redecorate the house and use the same wallpaper, and over the course of a few episodes they're panicking and they think that they've got it looking exactly as it was afterwards, but the second that Emily steps inside the house,
like,
what have you done here? We also saw, speaking of curtain fires, the again accident. Oh no, this is Cigarette. Ryan Connor and Sophie setting Steve's curtains on fire one time.
Very brief.
Yeah. That was nothing to write home about.
So a boat. We had a boat on fire. That's exciting.
Flaming boat, yes. It? Peter Barlow's boat that was outside the factory a couple of years ago.
And this was a mystery, wasn't it? Because so Peter's on. Who was on the boat? Was it just Simon? Simon's asleep. Peter has to rescue him. He has climbed up the factory gangway.
Yeah, that was a good action scene.
Kevin and Tyrone trying to put the fire out with a fire extinguisher, and then Peter has to jump off the boat onto the cobbles.
I always remember thinking he should have hurt his ankle a little bit more.
Well, he's very good at jumping. The fire does spread to the factory, and that's where the roof gets compromised, doesn't it?
Yes, that did. That's what led into the factory roof collapse. That was a fairly good fire.
This was the mystery. Everyone thought it was probably Peter, didn't they? That got drunk or something, but it was Roy sleepwalking that did it.
You counting that as an accident?
Yeah,
accidental sleepwalking arson from Roy. That was a fairly good one.
Now we had some arson at number 5, Gemma's house, when they get Kel, who's obviously a naughty man online. They find out where he lives, or they think he lives there.
They get arson
so
for
they
a bit.
Put some flame in.
Abby comes to the rescue. That was a low-key fire.
Gemma runs down the stairs without the kids, which I thought was a great move, but unfortunately they got rescued.
Oh, what about, speaking of classic fires, there was that one where Elsie set the sofa on fire that one time, didn't she, with a cigarette? Yeah.
So there's another one.
Hilda comes round to borrow a cup of sugar and finds an awful lot of smoke and not many flames, and they drag Elsie outside, and by the second half of the episode she's up and about, so definitely low-key. We got the flaming burger van. That was that.
How did that start? And that that was Molly and Tyrone.
Yeah, that's just been on recently on ITV3. They bought a van and converted it into a burger selling things. They go to a car boot sale, and on the way back, it's quite funny. They're going, oh, it's really hot, isn't it? It's quite warm, and they're thinking it's just like the residue from the ovens. And there's passers-by kind of waving at them, and
because the whole thing's on fire.
Yeah,
there's flames going everywhere.
Driving along the street, and there's flames coming out of it. And Tyrone's like, "No, we're closed, and then they end up driving into a lake. Classic scene. That was a good one. What else did we have? I think. Are we almost? Oh, Kathy's house went on fire once.
Oh no, that was
Kathy's hoard.
How do you count this as arson or accident? Because she's just
found out that her dead husband and her sister had been having an affair for years. So she gets a load of his stuff and burns it in a bin, just like, oh, I'm going to set fire to my memories. And then she has a phone call, I think, does she? And when she comes back into the lounge, the whole place is ablaze. And because Kathy was a bit of a hoarder, it's somewhat of a death trap. And is it Roy that rescues her in the end there? Roy or Ken, maybe? So I put that as an accident. Now, do we count Anna Windass on fire as an accident? Yeah.
Okay. And then we had Becky. Did we talk about Becky in the salon flat? I don't recall the circumstances. She just gets rescued.
That was an electrical fire in the cafe.
So I put accident.
Oh, in the salon flat?
Yeah. In 2011, Nick has to rescue her. So Nick's rescued like 3 people.
Nick is a bit of a hero.
He's rescued Becky. He's rescued
Toya this week,
and
Janice.
Yeah,
maybe that's why he sent Max and Shona upstairs. It's like, I've done my time rescue, and I'm just going to take Toya here, but you can go upstairs and do the rest. I've put my life in danger enough. Thank you very much.
He needs to rescue Leanne, and then he'll have rescued all of the women in that family.
Yeah.
But I don't. So the salon fire flat.
I can't remember what the cause of that was. It must have been electrics. I'm gonna say that was an accident as well. Yeah, because I think the story. I know when the cafe went on fire and Becky was rescued, she was suspected of arsoning there.
That's a different one. She's in 2 in like 2 years.
We haven't talked about the tram crash yet.
That was what I was saying to last.
Are we at the end now? Have we finally got through all of the fires that I could at least find?
What an anticlimactic way of reaching it. I was gonna go, but of course you might have noticed there's one fire that we haven't mentioned, which is possibly the greatest fire Coronation Street has ever seen.
Do you think it is?
One of the most amazing weeks on Coronation Street, and an incredible scenes. And you haven't written down what year this was, but I think it's coming up to an anniversary.
It's 2010, isn't it? It's the 50th anniversary.
So this year is going to be...
This year's 65.
The 15th anniversary of the tram crash.
Correct.
So I knew that. All right, don't say like 2011 like I'm supposed to remember.
I didn't. I said 2010. Anyway, yes, God. This year is the smoke damage. Your secondhand smoke damage is affecting your brain. We're just talking about it.
From watching all the YouTube videos. Yeah. Now this was amazing. This was This was complicated to recreate, wasn't it? Because they had a live episode and they obviously filmed a bunch of stuff at
weeks before.
Yeah, so they had to rebuild the carnage for the live episode. And so they recreated stuff. So,
I like the fact that there was an explosion at the joinery, which was what the bistro has now become. And there was some behind the scenes bits and pieces for it, and part of it is they're taking down the wooden frontage of the joinery and they put like foam replicas in there, so when it explodes it's just foam that's exploding out. So that's how you stay safe.
We're not going to talk too much about this, because I think we probably will do a special episode about the tram crash.
One day we will rewatch, because we haven't watched the tram crash week since it was on, have we? I think at the end of this year we need to do a 15th anniversary tram crash rewatch at last. Yeah, because it wasn't just that. There were all these extra bits that Coronation Street filmed, like the news reports and other bits that they added online. It was pretty special.
So this whole week was a tram crashes off the viaduct where the bistro is now. It comes off.
It's because there was an explosion in the joinery, a gas explosion, and that just makes the structure of the viaduct unstable.
The tram comes off and lands in the street, and there's just fire everywhere. The cabin's on fire. The joinery's on fire.
I think the big fire drama I remember was number 13, because the tram crashes into the shop and then number 13 next door catches on fire.
Rita's on the floor covered in sweets.
Oh, yes, she is. That's over at the cabin.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's very dramatic.
Everyone's on fire. There's fire everywhere.
The main fire, I think, was at number 13, because you had Claire Peacock, you had baby Freddie, you had Joshua, Simon, Russ. Russ was a little kid.
I'd say let them
that was
die.
Cheryl's son who lived there at the time.
They were all trapped
inside.
Why are you in fire again?
Did you watch this scene earlier? Did you see Lloyd trying to rescue them?
And then there's a
he kicks down the door, doesn't he?
Fire comes out. He runs in. He leaves Simon because he knows not to bother with Simon. But Jason rescues him.
Yes. Yeah, he's trapped in a wardrobe, isn't he, little Simon? He's hiding away in a wardrobe. Yeah, they get rescued by firemen. Then you got, meanwhile you got Kieran and Nick and Peter and Ashley trapped in the joinery. That's ablaze as well. You got, it's just
cabins on
wall to wall fire. I don't remember there being a whole lot of fire for the actual live episode, because that's Thursday. Most of it's out by then, and I think that's probably a good idea. That if you're doing a live episode, you don't want to risk having too many fires going.
Yeah, and that was where some of the big drama happened. But we won't
like Molly dying and stuff was on
You've
Thursday.
Spoiled it for everybody.
And I think maybe Hope being born as well. Peter.
But do we count any deaths here?
Ashley.
So Ashley things collapse on him, don't they?
Yeah, but I think I'm going to say, there was an explosion.
So he's the one that's trapped in the joinery, and you get Kieran, Nick, and Peter trying to rescue him, don't they? And he's kind of holding the ceiling up like bravely, and then he dies.
Yeah.
So
sucks
are we done with all the fires?
I think that's all the fires that we
It's
wrote notes on.
not all the fires that ever existed.
I hope we haven't missed any like really, really huge ones, but we may well have done. If you're listening and you're going, I can't believe you didn't think about X, Y, and Z fires, please write in or leave comments and tell us the fires that we have forgotten. But I think that's enough.
We tried our best, and it's quite a long episode.
What's the overall scores for...
The results are in.
The results are in for the deaths and the causes of fires on Coronation Street. Just doing a count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deaths.
7 deaths in fires.
And there've been loads of fires. There've been
and that includes, nobody's like fireman Tony.
Don't be rude. I think Tony and Edna are the most nothing characters that died.
Yeah.
But
who do you reckon? Who's the biggest character? It's probably Ashley, isn't it?
So we had Ashley, Edna, Tony, Cal, Maddie, Sunita.
And even Sunita, she didn't die in the fire, did she? She was in hospital and was tampered with.
So you think Ashley's the biggest?
Yeah, but
I think Sunita.
But Ashley was in the show longer. That's all I'm going to say. But also, I'm going to say that Cal
Yeah.
Cal was probably the most dramatic fire death, just because of getting caught in that big explosion. Tony was epic. Tony Gordon going back into the flames and then the explosion.
They're all pretty good. I think
Edna was the most comedic.
Edna was the
comedic
the
fire
saddest
death.
one.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole they're pretty good. But I think we want more deaths.
I mean, do you count like Luke Britton? Because he got blown up in a car, didn't he? And all the car fire. Like there was another fire, and you can delete your comment if you've written about this already. Doesn't Anna set Phelan's car on fire at one point?
But who does that? Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean, we did say it's not all the fires.
No, it just took us long enough to put this
But,
together.
people do love on YouTube to write a comment about something, like right at the beginning of watching it, that gets addressed later, and then just leave it there.
That does happen.
So enjoy yourself if that's what you're doing today. But
what's the cause? Yes, I want to know what the most common cause of fire is on Coronation Street.
Joint. All right, so I've only got 4 categories in the end because I got rid of electrics because it's too confusing to work out accident versus electrics because they're both the same thing. So hope and cigarettes are both equally the cause of 5 fires each.
Right, okay.
And then actually, hilariously enough, arson and accident had the same amount with 14 each.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I might have miscounted, but let's just keep it hilarious.
That's a lot of arson, isn't it? I want to know how well those figures stack up against your real life fires. How many of those are arson?
I think there's fewer
accidents.
arsonages.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you added hope to the arson, then you'd end up with a lot more, wouldn't you? You'd end up. With 19.
Actually, that's true. That is true. So there is more arson than accidents.
Yeah, but you're just as likely. I think. You're just as likely to have a fire if you have a hope or a cigarette.
How many of the
Which one's more dangerous to your health?
How many of the arsonists got away with it? That's the question. Carl Monroe's ended up getting arrested, didn't he? That was when John Mitchie left the programme.
Well, I mean, Hope's been caught every time, but does she really get any punishment? Not really.
Not really, but she's going to get to an age where you can't just shake your head and tut anymore.
I need them to do something Mad Meyer-ish with Hope to celebrate.
But it's a shame because she's a sympathetic character, isn't she? She's in no way a villain. She's just a troubled young girl.
She's a cow.
No, she's. I think they might have her develop into a bit of a mean girl type character.
She's a mean girl. She's mean to Sam. She's a bully.
But I think we're supposed to kind of
enjoy
her.
I do. But I can recognise her faults. I'm not going to sit and say she's an innocent little lamb. I feel sorry for Ruby. She's got to put up with her.
So, what would you say were your top fires? Is it the big ones? And maybe out of all the small fires, were there any there that you'd like to say as honourable mentions? Because I think the Victoria Court fire does hold a pretty high place for me. The second Rovers fire, it's all the big ones, isn't it? Mad Meyer fire was amazing.
The Mad Meyer fire, and the tram crash stuff. That was always gonna be one of my favourites.
I think the tram crash is hard just because there's so much going on tram crash week.
Tram Creek.
The fire bit of it maybe gets swallowed up by the other drama there. It's one drama among many others.
I also liked Peter's flat fire with Simon in it because I do remember watching that at the time and thinking that was really dramatic and exciting. And I love all of Hope's fires. I think I very much enjoy watching those happen.
I feel for some reason that one where Don sets the factory on fire and just enjoys watching it burn, only to not realise that he's helping out his arch nemesis by destroying any evidence that he's been counterfeiting. That's got to be up there as well.
I mean, the Platt fire was fun.
I just need a bit more time to let that one sit with me. Let the dust settle
and decide where it falls in the. I mean, the direction of it was the biggest draw. And I do think we're now at a stage. Coronation Street is coming into its 65th year, and so you've got to do something a bit different because we've just talked for coming on to 2 hours about fires, and there's only so many different fire. The same locations are catching on fire over and over again. The same things are happening. So you've got to do something a bit different, haven't you?
Yeah.
But what could be... Because I think, the rumours are that there's going to be a big stunt next year that's going to involve Emmerdale and Coronation Street. Yeah. We don't know how likely it is that it's going to be a crossover episode, but it's going to be a stunt. How likely is it it's going to be a fire?
I mean, Emmerdale does, they had their plane crash, didn't they?
It's a shame they did the plane crash already, because a plane crashing on Coronation Street and making everything catch on fire would be really cool.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have a helicopter land on it by accident.
Yeah. If you're going to do a fire, you can't half-arse it, because...
you can. We've done many of them.
You shouldn't, because there's been a few too many fires on Coronation Street which have been fairly low stakes, like the speed dial one, for example. I just wonder, just another fire.
How much does it cost? I bet it costs so much money.
Yeah.
But it's one of the few things that you can really, it's a car crash or a fire, isn't it?
It's one of the most visually exciting things that you can have happen on a soap. We had the Coronation Street and everything going underwater. That's clearly another level, but I get a feeling that a fire is, and I don't want to undersell the efforts that go into it, a relatively easy thing to do.
What are you saying? Fire is easy?
Well, compared to other disasters that could happen, I would say, and I don't know what I'm basing this on, that a fire is relatively easy to do, and you get a very spectacular visual payoff.
I don't think anyone would agree with you about it being easy. I think it's a right pain in the arse.
Maybe it
I
is.
bet it's so involved in so many bits of paperwork, and everyone's got to have special fire training, and everyone's got to have a fire extinguisher up their jumper.
I'm just kind of looking at the how to put it together versus the visual payoff. You're not going to get much more that is visually interesting than a fire.
I agree with you.
And that's why when it doesn't work out so well, or when you're distracted by CGI flames like you are this week, it's just a bit disappointing. It pulls you out of it a bit.
I'm going to give Coronation Street a target here, right? Next time you do a fire, let's make it a record-breaking fire. And if you want to break a record, you're going to have to work really hard, because the TV show that's had a record for fires is Game of Thrones. In season 7, they had 20 stuntmen catch on fire at once.
Really?
Now, there was a dragon involved in that, I think. I don't know.
Not sure we're going to get that on Coronation Street.
But you want 21 people on fire in the next time we have a Corrie...
There's not really been, apart from Anna Windass, and that was just the bottom of her legs, wasn't it? You've not had literally somebody rolling about in flames like you would on Game of Thrones.
Fire.
No. That's the next stage then,
That is your ambitious target.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to have to do a bit of scrimping and saving over a year to be able to catch 21 people you need to do.
Oh, I just thought of another fire that we didn't mention. That little explosion that Sam had when he was doing his science show.
That doesn't count.
In Speed Dial. That was, it might do.
Well, there we go. That's the fires of Coronation Street.
Now.
We're all safe. Make sure you get yourself a fire blanket, an extinguisher for your house. Make sure all your fire alarms are working. Don't cover them in plastic bags because they keep going off when you're cooking. That would be a stupid thing to do.
The thing that we take away from the other thing to take away from our fire training at school is don't use those little block, what's it called? Extension things, where you plug in and there's 3 little plugs around the cube. Apparently they're very bad and lots of fires get caused by those. So there's a tip for the next time Coronation Street wants to have a fire. Raise awareness of not using those types of plugs.
And don't allow a small pyromaniac to live with you.
Yes, good tip. Ship her off to...
And don't smoke.
To boarding school.
Or vape. That's the end of the lesson.
Yes.
We'll be back at the weekend, or maybe before, with our regular episode 666, where we'll be talking about the fire.
666 this week, yeah.
So we'll see you then.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Ta-ra.